Everyone knows the giant stone heads of Easter Island. Almost nobody knows the actual story. For decades, the popular version went like this. A society obsessed with building statues cut down every tree on the island to move them, destroyed their own environment, and collapsed. A cautionary tale about humanity destroying itself. It's a great story. Dramatic, easy to remember, and according to more recent research, it's mostly wrong. The real story is stranger, and honestly, even more impressive than the myth. Let's actually look at what happened. Easter Island, called Rapa Nui by its people, sits in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, over 2,000 miles from the nearest continent, one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth. And somehow, the people who settled here carved nearly 1,000 massive stone statues, called moai, some over 30 feet tall, weighing up to 80 tons, carved from volcanic rock at a single quarry, then transported across the island. For decades, the assumption was that they used logs as rollers, requiring enormous deforestation. But in 2012, researchers tested something different. What if they walked the statues upright? Using ropes attached at 3 points, teams could rock the statue side to side, walking it forward. Researchers actually tested this with a replica statue. And it worked. A small team could move a multi-ton statue this way without cutting down a single tree, which completely changes the deforestation story we thought we knew. The statues likely weren't the reason the island lost its trees at all. Easter Island used to be covered in palm forests. By the time Europeans arrived in 1722, it was almost entirely bare. For a long time, this was blamed entirely on the islanders themselves. But newer research points to a different culprit. Rats. Polynesian rats, which arrived on the same canoes as the first settlers. With no natural predators on the island, the rat population exploded. And rats love eating palm seeds. Specifically, the seeds these particular palm trees needed to reproduce. Archaeological digs have found palm nuts across the island covered in rat gnaw marks, thousands of them, an overwhelming amount of evidence. Without new seeds successfully sprouting, the forest slowly failed to regenerate. Combined with some land clearing by humans for farming, but at a much smaller scale than previously assumed. The forest didn't disappear because of statue building obsession. It disappeared slowly over centuries due to an invasive species nobody could have predicted. And here's the most important part. The population didn't collapse before Europeans arrived either. Skeletal evidence from this period shows a population that was generally healthy, not starving, not at war with itself as the old myth claimed. They had adapted, farming differently, living differently, but surviving. So, if the islanders didn't destroy themselves, what actually happened? The real collapse came from outside. Starting in 1722, European contact brought diseases the islanders had never been exposed to. Smallpox, influenza. Diseases their immune systems had no defense against. The population, which may have been as high as 15,000, dropped catastrophically. And then it got worse. In the 1860s, slave raids from Peru kidnapped much of the remaining population, taken to work in horrific conditions where the vast majority died. By 1877, the population on the island itself had collapsed to barely over 100 people, from thousands to just over 100, in less than 2 centuries. Not because they cut down too many trees fighting over statues, because of disease and slavery brought from outside after centuries of successfully adapting on their own. The statues weren't a monument to self-destruction. They were a monument to a society that had figured out how to thrive in one of the most isolated places on Earth. The popular Easter Island story blames the islanders for their own collapse. The real story blames rats, disease, and outside exploitation, which is a very different lesson than the one most people learned in school. Sometimes the popular version of history just isn't the accurate one. If you want more myths corrected with the real story, subscribe. Next week, we look at the year almost every civilization on Earth nearly collapsed at once.